We have a very fine and illustrious panel out here, and some of them have been my seniors from the same alum and from the army. So it's indeed a very rare privilege to be asked to chair this session. We first have General PM Mallick,
Kundana
who is a
नहीं आ रहा
scholar. Who is a scholar? Is he there? I can hear other chatter. May I request? Okay, he's there. He's there. But can I request other people to just mute it so that you know we don't get distracted? Other people to mute it. People who are not speaking. Yeah, thank you. So there is General Mallick. He is a scholar by uh, in all senses, having done his MTech, MSc, MPhil, and MMS. Wide experience as a soldier, of course, having retired as a major general from the army. But he's also worked in EW, SIGINT, cyber, IT, and communication fields. What a profile. He's also been an instructor. He's been, done a number of, he's also published more than 60 papers and has participated in multiple panel discussions. So we look forward to you, sir, eagerly for your first presentation. So your time is from 12 to 12:20, but now since it is, 12 to 12:20 was when it was scheduled. But so, maybe I'll give you an extra few minutes because we got an extra few minutes. Please, sir, over to you as the first panelist to start off. Thank you. Participate in multiple panel discussions. So we look forward to you, sir, eagerly for your first presentation. So your time is from 12 to 12:20, but now since it is... So I can hear you, but somehow, I have suddenly realized that, can I request all others to mute? I can hear my own voice. Someone seems to be recorded it and trying to replay it back. Other than the speaker, if you do not mute it, gentlemen, I think this will not work. Please mute.
Yeah, I think somebody has kept the YouTube channel open along with the mic, and therefore...
Okay. So that is what it is. May I request whoever it is to mute it, please? Thank you. Over to General Mallick.
Can you hear me?
Sir, we can hear you, sir. Please.
May I request somebody to open my PowerPoint, if it is possible? I had sent a PowerPoint yesterday.
Yeah. If it is Rishi, please kindly load.
Before the PowerPoint is opened, let me take this opportunity to thank the organizations for inviting me and deliver a talk on a subject which is very close to my heart. And thank you, Pavithran, for such a lovely introduction. I wish my wife was also here in this web meeting. Before I start, I would like to introduce, if the PowerPoint comes is all right, I run two websites. One is called strategicstudyindia.com and one is Indian Strategic Knowledge Online. Every day, 30 papers I put on strategic affairs which have been published in the last about 48 hours. I've got a hit of about 5,000 to 6,000 every day, mostly from US and UK. Unfortunately, Indians don't read. But I've been doing this for the last 9 years and I did not have a single day's break. Second is the knowledge online. I put a lot of material on various issues of interest. Those who are interested may like to have a look. Next slide, please. This is the website Strategic Study Online. And next slide. I have put some folders on, say, GreyZone warfare also, as also multi-domain operation, all domain operation, which are the talk of the town nowadays. So you may like to have a look. Having said that, let me come back to the subject proper. You know, technology is changing very fast. Previously, during Second World War or even during the Cold War, the armed forces, especially the US or the Western armed forces, were driving technology for going into newer domains. They were funding and all those things. In 1946, US Army employed world's first general purpose digital computer to calculate artillery fire table. In 1969, US DoD launched a computer network called ARPANET, which pioneered internet. In addition, the operational research, the internet, space, communication, GIS, GPS, project management, management techniques, leadership, all were driven by the armed forces basically. But things have changed. Today, it is the big guys who are driving. And no wonder if you see the screen, US Defense Secretary that time, General Mad Dog Mattis, went to Silicon Valley and met the big honchos of Amazon. This is Amazon, then this Google, Microsoft, and everybody, and asked them what you can do for US Defense Forces. It is the other way around today. He's a $1 trillion companies. They don't look for your money. If the money comes, all right, but otherwise it goes. These are dual-use technologies. And the people, the bad actors, they are very smart. They're agile. Their organization is agile. They're tech savvy. They pick these dual-use technologies very fast. By nature, the states, the hierarchical, conventional forces are slow to react, slow to pick up, though they have very huge resources in terms of finance, manpower, technology, everything. But these bad guys take a lead in these emerging technologies. So what do we do? So what I will do is, I will go by one some of the emerging technologies and how the conventional forces and the bad actors are using these technologies, that I will come back. Second is the organizations of these bad actors, I am calling it bad actors intentionally, are networked. They are very smart. Our armed forces are hierarchical nature. It becomes difficult to move. There's a beautiful paper long time back that John Gutska and others have made. They said only networks can fight networks. Hierarchies are at great disadvantage to fight networks. And that is why these special forces are very effective against fighting these people, because they operate in small teams, they are networked, and they are tech savvy, and that's why you find the SOF, the Special Operating Forces in US and other places, take the limelight in these type of operations. So I come back to next slide, please. Cyber. Now in cyber, I give two examples how these are being used by, say, non-state actors like ISIS. These people use cyber or internet for posting their videos online, recruiting people, fundraising, spread their propaganda, strategize, share information, training, including bomb making, etc. Hezbollah used a private cell phone network to share intelligence about enemy troop movements in 2006 against Israelis. You have seen how smartphones were used by elite on attack on Mumbai, using GPS to reach Mumbai by port, studying online maps to coordinate assaults, monitor news websites by handlers, and all these things. One example, we were talking earlier how the social media were being used in the latest in 2021 conflict in Gaza, May 2021. Left side is how Israelis use this when they took out one of the leaders, and the right side is the immediate response by the Hamas. Two examples I like to quote. One was when ISIS came out with all internet blazing. They had only about 1,500 volunteers with ragtag forces, with used second-hand weapons and some small little vehicles, and they announced that they are coming and occupying Mosul. And on their way, they picked up a lot of volunteers, again, very, very ragtag force. The Iraqi forces, they had much better equipment. They were entrenched there. They had all the training by US and all. They were all looking at smartphones and their propaganda, what these ISIs are doing. In the bargain, they just ran away. The 1,500 IS fighters rolled into northern Iraq, carried out the offensive like a virtual marketing tool. Far better equipped with tanks and hepters, better trained, they just ran away, leaving their weapons and equipment. But that is not the end of the story. They learned the lesson, and by 2016, the situation was completely reversed. They used the same ISIS tactics, techniques, and procedures against the IS, used portable cell phone towers and its own hashtag free Mosul. Of course, US was there, joining the offensive with cyber and social media in addition to the year that they had. But they defeated IS completely. The ISIS used to, the ISIS used to use this network, internet and all for propagating their propaganda and all these things. They used to publish a magazine called Dubik. It is a fantastic magazine by their presentations and all. Now the US Defense Secretary said they had got enough, now we must dismantle them. The first opposition came from their own intelligence agencies because they get a lot of intelligence from this network. They're inside there. But ultimately, the Defense Secretary said, okay, let's do it. And the NSA, they had a particular group who was tasked to do that. And within no time, they had dismantled the complete network of ISIS, and you do not get to the Dubik and others. So these are the games that are being played at various levels, and we should be aware. Next is how, okay, we'll leave it at that for a short of time. Artificial intelligence. Now, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Our Prime Minister has addressed on October 5, next slide, please, 2020, he said, it remains our collective responsibility, next slide, please, to ensure trust in how artificial intelligence is used. Algorithm transparency is key to establishing the trust, and we must protect the world against the weaponization of AI by non-state actors. Next slide, please. There were 3 task forces which were ordered by the government of India. I am just quoting one of them, which said this. Please have a look. This is our Indian government. There are other 2, one from Niti Aayog and one from the MOD. I will leave it. Next slide, please. These are some of the use of artificial intelligence technology by armed forces. There's a long list, but since it is from the state forces, I'd go through this slide slightly fast. Next slide, please. There are examples what the states do. Israel and South Korea. This is how artificial intelligence and robotics are being used. Now I will give an example of Project Maven. Now this was one project. What happened was there is a huge amount of data which was coming through the various UAV feeds, the satellites. You already had intelligence, information, photographs of people and their various activities, movements, etc. And it was humanly impossible for analyzing all this data and give a actionable intelligence. So the US DoD tasked Google to do this job for them, and Google used open source applications as well as their own applications to do this task. This task was called Operation Project Maven. Why it came into the limelight was that some of these scientists and engineers who are working in Project Maven in Google, they said they will not work this do this work, but AI cannot be used for offensive purposes and all. That was a huge hue and cry, and Pichai had to come in and said, okay, this is the project, and after that we will not take over any other project like this. So this is also another way things are happening. How the next slide, this is called the first artificial intelligence war, the latest Israeli operation against Hamas, the first AI war that is being called. And this is what Israelis have been doing. The terrorists use this AI basically nowadays for making use of media like deep fakes. The technology is available in open domain and it is so sophisticated, you can't make out whether it is a fake video or an actual video. And it can make people appear to say or do something which is atrocious. But they can do it, and it's very difficult to make out it is a fake video. The AI technology is going in a big way. The AI can write things for you. It can generate bodies and faces. Online vulnerabilities on a cyber domain, it can check the online vulnerabilities, this extort financial resources, generate credible misbehavior. I forgot to mention one particular aspect. Pegasus. Today you see Pegasus is snooping on US State Department officials. Now Pegasus is all of you know, is an Israeli company which does all this snooping business. If it is money, if they can do this, some bad elements can always have Pegasus to do it for them against us. We are using Pegasus, our intelligence agency is against Pegasus, but what stops them using Pegasus against us? Because it is money and somebody pays money, he'll get it. By hook or by crook. If they can do it against US State Department officials, you can make out. Okay, next slide please. Now there are drone, this is a talk of the town nowadays. Okay, next slide please. How the drones are active by terrorist groups or insurgents or by non-state actors. Next slide please. I have given couple of examples here, how drones have been used. I will dwell upon the second and third bullet. You know, the Aramco, the world's biggest company, this is well protected by US patriotic missiles and all. And these Houthi rebels, the ragtag force, they used these drones and cruise missiles. Don't forget that. And they cannot carry a huge amount of explosives. So they pinpointed the targets and carried out their operations, and there was a hue and cry in the world oil market. What have they used? They used commercially available small little things. Their target mapping, there was not that huge costly satellite type of a thing. They used Google Maps. And they came in a swarm. The direction of attack was from a different angle, and the patriotic missiles were facing somewhere else. And even if they faced, they could not have brought it down. You see the cost-benefit analysis. You spend millions of dollars for having these anti-drone things, and this is very less costly thing. So next thing was the Azerbaijan-Armenian conflict. Okay, next slide. I'll go a little detail because the latest it has got great ramifications for us. Everybody talks about, you know, this is what is happening. This is what actually happened. The Turkish have become a big player. The Israelis, the Turkish, the billion-dollar predators vis-a-vis the middle-level drones as well as these small little drones. These are all three levels people are operating. Okay, next slide. Armenia won the previous battle, but the Azerbaijanis learned their lessons and they did this. Okay, next slide, please. Lesson learned. So there is a feeling nowadays that the drone has come and now the obituary of tanks and others are not fighting vehicles has been written and all this. Nothing like that. When these missiles came first, the same thing was talked about that missiles will take on these armored vehicles and the aircraft. So nothing of that sort happened because people will change, technology will change. But if you are not sensitive to the requirement, the changes that are occurring, then you will be in trouble. Drones, I'll give an example. I'll give a scenario painting. Okay. Now, say, what happened in Jammu? One small little drone. What is the carrying capacity of that drone? What is the duration of that drone to come and do it? So very little. It can do hardly any damage. But what happens is, it's a hue and cry. Our media has always make a hue and cry. If this drone is being operated within your country by somebody, then the security forces, the law enforcement agency will take care of that. There's nothing to worry about. The small little things you cannot stop, but they will be taken care of. If it is coming from outside the boundaries, international boundaries, or LC or LSC, then there is a separate issue that can be dealt with separately. But just making a hue and cry, some drone has come and put something which is a very little damage, it causes sensation and nothing else. The anti-drone technologies, whatever is available, is costly. Can you protect every possible VS and vulnerable areas and vulnerable points in, say, J&K? What is the cost-benefit analysis? Can you do it? Money is same. If you put it here, somebody else would have to be reduced. So this type of sensationalization has to be stopped, and people have to be told that, well, we will take care not to worry about it, because this is only sensationalism, and we are helping the adversaries. Now I'll paint a scenario. Say nowadays all these companies provide you stores. So some store is coming to a particular place over a period of time in different formats and different things. Maybe your own department, post department will be all those logistic chain they will be giving. So the various parts in various way keep coming to a particular place. The last thing which comes is the manual by which these parts are assembled. Not a problem. Now, where to get the ammunition from? It can also be done by the 3D printing and all that. I'll come a little later.
2 minutes, sir.
The drone comes and coolly drops you the ammunition.
2 minutes.
Now, it comes from across Punjab, J&K. Now this gentleman is ready with a weapon and ammunition to do something wrong. This is probable. This is possible. I'll leave it to you. But these are the threats that we have to think and take care of. Next, OSINT. Now somehow in Indian discourse, these open source intelligence are never talked of. Today, 80% of the intelligence come from open source. And there are various things, I will not get into the details, but suffice it to say, say I am a company commander, I want a photograph of what is against us. So in a typical hierarchical structure. He will give a demand. It will keep going up and up and up. And today there are number of additional agencies have come up. Previously, headquarter ideas is not there, so DGMI used to ask this particular agency and they used to get within a day. Today DGMI has to give it to headquarter ideas and then they process and all sorts of questions will be asked in 3 days. This is late. But what can be done? He goes on the goes on the internet, pays some money, gets the latest photographs, satellite photographs. The
General Mallick, allow me to just, General Mallick, you got 1 more minute. Please.
Okay, we are giving some more time. Okay, next slide. Next slide. This is the type of information photograph you get. Okay, next slide. You don't get it from otherwise. You are getting 3D printing again. US Navy, the vessels now have got 3D printing machines and any spares, anything which is not available, they do 3D printing. This is being done in the battlefield. This is what 3D printing does. Next slide. The same thing can be done by the non-state actors or the bad actors. Next. These are some of the IIT applications. Okay, next slide. Next slide. There is quantum technology. I will not touch IIT application. Then is space. Now there is a big role of private players which has come. The new space companies, high resolution imaging, geolocation, and remote sensing. These are available by pay, and they'll be cheap. The SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Orbit. The SpaceX has got largest active satellite constellation of 242 satellites as on date, and they're going into thousands. And it is available to you. Will you wait for your own space agencies to give you these photographs, or whatever you want, the remote sensing and or you use this? This is what is available to your tactical battlefield commanders on a price which they can pay. But what is your procedure? This has to be taken care of. Now, conclusion, you see, it is very difficult to predict. We are all talking about this thing. This is what Robert Gates had said. And I have got a big issue on use of terminologies, and I kept it as a caveat. But if time permits and during the question answer session, if somebody wants, I've got a very strong opinion about this use of terminologies in various aspects. And I will request the chair because we have started quite early. So if you can give me some time at the end of this, I'll dwell on this. So with this, I come to the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. This is my last slide. And with this, thank you for a very patient hearing. Thank you.
So thank you, sir. You covered a wide range of subjects in your, 24 minutes. I'd give you some extra time, but definitely we'll come back and give you more time in the question and answers. The aim is that we should allow people to expand. But let me, dwell on a couple of things which you highlighted, wherein, the participants might also like to put their questions at the end of the session. The military definitely were pioneers in ICT, especially in the US. But almost 20 years before, I had started hearing this thing, this rhetoric that Indians are superpowers in IT. Today, no one says that. Where was the Indian military? Did they initiate, thought process or policy recommendations to handhold and, ensure that indigenous tech companies come up? The lead ministry, as per the business of rules for IT or cybersecurity today is MeitY. But increasingly, it is now, we are aware, it is not a domain of ITES industry. It's a domain of warfare with enormous implications for national security, national wealth, national, what have you. And there we have the military and the Ministry of Defense, who are constitutionally supposed to guard India's national security. Has the Ministry of Defense and the military taken up a case that we need to have a change in business rules. You also touched on things like deep fakes and Israeli Iron Dome, Korean systems, but not a single one of Indian systems. But with that, I go on to the next speaker. We have Colonel KPM Das. I call him Colonel KPM Das because I knew him when I was in service. I was a young major when I met the legendary Colonel KPM Das in Bangalore. He had a name as one of the foremost thinkers in the Signal Corps, who were the information warriors till a few years back. Now, he today is the National Cybersecurity and Trust Officer for Cisco. He's also had exposures in Mindtree, and he's an alum of the National Defense Academy. He was also an exposure in the UN. And what all? This is an amazing record, sir. I wouldn't want to read the whole thing. But thought leader and scholar, no doubt. Over to you, sir, for your presentation on space, cyber, and electromagnetic activities, CEMA in GreyZone warfare. Udas, are you there?
My fault. I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can all hear you now, sir.
Okay.
You can see your screen, sir.
Yeah, thank you for your remarks. And it's a privilege to be on this panel on a research foundation. A couple of disclaimers. One, I'm no thinker, I'm no scholar, I'm no researcher. I work hands-on. It began in '98 when we did some smart red stuff, and been spending time more on the coding and other kind of stuff. So the subject today is interesting, and because I am not familiar with space, I have a layman's view, and with electromagnetic, again a layman's view. I'll begin with cyber and spend most of my time there. If that's okay with the panel. There is this interesting intersection between technology, law, and capacities. Capacity is important. I want to call it out, especially because of demographic context. And there's a question on the chat window where somebody asked a similar question. I'll cover that as well. GreyZone, asymmetric warfare, hybrid warfare, all elements of strategy. I'm sorry, there's a spelling mistake there. And there are a number of terms that are today being considered as cornerstones of these kind of strategies. Tactical flexibility, ambiguity, calibrated use of force, protracted. And I picked it up from Michael, who's published it in prison. And if you were to put it into buckets, it is means, which means what, ways, which means how, and a mix of both, right? And I've spent most of my time on means, right? Because that's the only area that I understand. I'm quite, befuddled in the strategy and this 30,000 feet discussions. I'll cover more of the means here. So looking at cyber, you see, it is touching our daily lives in India, especially critical infrastructure. A small thing, your inability to, handle your, water or electricity bill can have your daily life come crashing down. But law and order defense not a state monopoly anymore, especially with cyber, because you have a lot of private actors. And my sense is the proportion is changing from 10, 90, 20, 80 to something like 60, 40 or something like that. And what is worse is your vital areas and vital points, as they're called, they're now moving to traditional civil society spaces, right? And there is a whole lot of recent history to talk about that. The equation is that instruments have become a great leveler. Look at what North Korea did to Sony, right? The cost is low, You can today go and buy.
Loud, sir.
Okay, sure. Is this better? Is this better? Is
I
this
can hear you
better?
loud and clear, sir. I can hear you loud and clear. May I request people to increase maybe the volume? Yes, he was definitely, sounded lesser than the previous speaker. But if you increase your volume, you can hear him very fine.
I think it's fine.
Entirely
It's
audible,
loud
sir.
and I'm able to hear him.
Loud and clear. Oh, okay, sure. Thank you. Apologize if it was low. The impact from these instruments have now become significant. Okay, so something like the butterfly effect. State actors to non-state actors covered by my friend earlier. And what is more important is there are proxy players and agents, right? Which is that you mask your identity, you don't even know what that person represents. We talked of double agents 50 years ago, 70 years ago. Now you have triple, quadruple agents, right? So let me give you a viewpoint which is away from technology, but it impacts technology people, right? Because non-democratic states are fundamentally weaker militarily, so they're likely to use more of psychological warfare tactics because that's something that they can afford. The second is democracies are fundamentally crippled. Now, this is a point I want to make, right? As compared to authoritarian states, because you are driven by constitution, you have policies which are open, transparent, and citizens are not supportive of authoritarian methods or ways and means in cyber. And the purpose of the strategy in most of these cyber strategies is to destabilize an adversary's domestic politics, right? So it is larger than warfare, and which is why I have a different view to what I just heard from the chair. This is not a warfare play. I'll come to it later. This is not a warfare play. This is a whole of nation play. And that is fundamentally the reason why there are a lot of things missing here. There's a doctrinal differentiation between conventional and cyber. That's the other point I want to make on, and which is why you cannot take it from a warfare approach. It is very different because there's complete irrelevance of warfighting doctrine and precepts. The kind of clarity is different. The deterrence as a concept is different, fundamentally different from conventional and nuclear deterrence. It's more of centers around disruption, and there's something called punctuated deterrence. I'll come to that a little later. And in the physical domain, force structures are well defined. You have something called order of battle. You pick up a Jane's handbook, tells you a lot about what people do, how they're constituted. You can't do that in cyber. The other thing is there are more than two players. Some are not states, some are unpredictable. Some come in, some go. Attacks are invisible, hard to trace, very hard to attribute. I can tell you from my personal experience, extremely hard to attribute. And unlike nuclear and conventional, where there's a clear firewall, right, between intent and action, cyber attacks is very different. Deterrence requires transparency because when you have a stick, you want the other guy to know you have a stick. Cyber is slightly more nuanced. So that's the other point I want to make. And resilience is more important than deterrence. I come from a school of thought which says defense actually precedes offense. I am stuck in a mouse issue. Just hang on, give me a moment. I'm sorry about that again. A quick look at what happened in Georgia and the lessons learned. It complemented military operations. So point made here, complements military operations. It can be within military operations, it can be outside of that. It took a lot of time. Contrary to belief, it is not immediate, something spur of the moment. There's a lot of work which goes on in preparation. And then you have this whole play in two dimensions, X and Y, data platforms, networks, etc., versus perception, platform, social media, WhatsApp, etc., So the other thing I want to make here is that you need to build a virtual operational structure, which is why again I'm foreclosing this warfare approach to this whole thing. It has to be a mix of whole of nation, private sector, public sector, everybody coming together to form what is called a virtual operation structure. And if a general is leading it, that is just incidental, right? It is in no means derived from the experience in battlefield. The other thing is that the private sector was heavily leveraged, right? So eventually all of the virtual infrastructure in Georgia was taken on by a complete private party tulip systems, and they kept the systems going. And remember the last point, we all know it well, the moment you're physically dependent on some other nation for your network infrastructure, you have a problem. The good thing about having a large demography is you can mobilize people, you can mobilize citizens. And we are in a unique sweet spot, remember that. And those are the capacities we need to harness. We need a more partner model with the government, not like the present model where it is not a partnership of equals. The government is here, the private sector here. No, it doesn't work. It has to be a partnership of equals. Remember, this is law of armed conflict does not apply. It operates below that, and which is the reason most of the things which you may consider warfare is seen in the cybercrime lens. And obviously, you can't attribute most of it to the state. It's extremely difficult. Other thing, of course, is there is nothing called a cold start. You get hit today and you say next week I want this launched. It doesn't happen like that. You need time. A quick word about cyber deterrence. I come to what is called the democracy dilemma: freedom of expression versus privacy versus security. Freedom of the private sector. You know what happened in San Bernardino, where Apple refused to, crack open the phone, and they had to go to a private company in Israel to do that. Internet is frontierless. So from a deterrence point of view, the model in cyber is you don't have a big grand action. You have series of actions and cumulative effects over time. Time of choosing, of course, is discrete, and diplomatic signaling is necessary. So the lesson has to be driven home that this is happening now. On legal grounds, extremely shaky. Talent Manual, Budapest Convention, all of them have failed to cover this, and because of which countries know that they are operating without a law covering their back. And the answer, in my mind, is not in law and norms, but in refinement of doctrine. And this is very local. You can't pick it up from foreign manuals and glossies. A quick look at offensive cyber ops. You need three things: technology, process, and people. And there are two areas where India is uniquely well positioned, and that is process and people. Our IT industry, which is $200 billion, has laid a foundation where we are running businesses on processes, procedures, SOPs, and systems. Why do people come to India to scale up from a 50-person company to a 1,000-person company in 3 weeks? Why do they do that? They do that because we have mastered the art of process. People, obvious, I won't cover it anymore. But this is what happens when you want to take on an offensive cyber capability. And what is within the red dotted lines is what I want to focus. One, of course, is operational management, which is all around process, and training and support, which is largely around people, right? I don't want to comment on technology because that is something which requires deep investments, and which is where we wish that the government could invest more. Private sector, they don't have the kind of deep pockets that governments have. And in a separate session, I could spend more time on this slide. The other thing is that I'll now quickly cover electromagnetic domain and the space domain. It's a low threshold weapon. All you need is a suitcase with the right kind of smart components, and you can let some of these big systems, big daddy systems, including defense, which can be brought down. And what is the good news is, on the defensive side, it's not very expensive to build electromagnetic hygiene across critical infrastructure. What used to cost millions of dollars today can be done with very simple techniques and methodologies. Coming to space, there are interventions, as we know. Active debris removal is something that is going on. Satellites have robotic arms, but it can do more than just secure, it can even damage. On the kinetic physical side, India has 2 years or 3 years back done a ASAT demo. There are versions of it also called co-orbital ASATs and direct ASATs, which are a little more up in the maturity curve. Then you have something called deep space radar capability, where you can look deep into space and produce a blueprint of what is there at a particular XYZ dimension. And of course, the non-kinetic, which is lasers and so on. So the point I want to leave here is it is an offense-dominant dimension of warfare. The one who's using space more for communication is more vulnerable, and therefore there is an asymmetric dependency on communications. If you want to do global projection, you use space, you are more vulnerable, right? So the more you have developed space, the more you have to lose, and you move from what is typically called mutually assured destruction in nuclear to what is called mutual impotence in space. Regulation is difficult because it's dual use, governance is complex and hybrid. And here are some instances, and Rajeshwari Pillai of ORF has written a beautiful article. In fact, it will be a pleasure listening to her next time around. The Russians, to my mind, have actually matured on this curve much ahead than many others. And they have converted their EW dominance into areas of space and ASAT, aircraft delivered, ground delivered, all of that. So just a point about our local thing, that, information dominance will require space dominance. Think about it. And China is deploying satellites at twice the rate of the US as we speak. So there is a race which is on, and we will soon see shoulder to shoulder satellites, vying for space. Someone asked a question just now about technical mastery over various subjects. I think computing is very crucial. I think we have the seed, but to scale it up is a different problem altogether. And on more specific to the question that's been answered, calling it a niche capability, computational power science, computational sciences, I think it is true. And the challenge which we see is between strategy, thought leadership, strategy and all of that, and execution is a big yawning gap. And that is where the cookie crumbles. And we would do well to keep a separate session aside just to talk about that, on how you're going to make all this happen, what we are talking about today. Thank you, and look forward to questions.
Fascinating presentation. And you are extremely modest by saying that you are just a bits and bytes player, Hoda. You're definitely not, sir. You definitely are at the 30,000 feet view, because you have expanded on multiple domains. The first is non-democratic states are fundamentally weaker. Are they? I thought resilience in the information domains, democracies have got inherent advantage. On the contrary, if you look at authoritarian states, they, even a small, push on the information domain, they feel, very hugely threatened. I might be wrong, but I'll leave it to the, rest of the panelists, and maybe in the questions for other people to take this on. Now, one more thing, which I felt very fascinating. How was fought by nations or military? The answer is obvious. Wars are fought by nations. But then, can the military be kept to the side and say, we will call you when we need you? Shouldn't the military participate in nation building? Shouldn't they become domain experts? Today, what do we have? Our entire critical infrastructure are dominated, especially in the ICT backbones, by China. And we have a turbulence on the LAC. Who is accountable for this mess? Can we just say that, military says, we are not responsible because we were never asked? Again, I would, want this to be touched upon at the end of the session. But, Colonel Das has given us time because he's finished well before time. Thank you so much, sir. Let me go on to the next speaker. Next speaker is Mr. Kundana Kumar Lal, and he's a global thought AI leader. I do not know much on AI. He's also an AI evangelist and AI influencer, and I look forward to, learning this from him. And he has got He's a thorough, professional and again a domain expert. Done his, post graduation in AI and computer vision, natural language processing, predictive analytics, anomaly detection, information retrieval, and robotics. Definitely a guru. Okay, I, sir, without much further ado, let me invite you, and I look forward to your particular, presentation. Now we have Mr. Kundana Kumar Lal speaking on the use of AI and IoT in GreyZone warfare. Over to you, sir. Okay. Are you there, sir, Mr. Kundana Kumar Lal? Because please unmute yourself if you're there.
I think he has got some bandwidth issues because he was coming and going.
I just hope it's not a GreyZone warfare at work.
I saw him on the screen. He's been there.
Okay. Okay, so we, in the interim, till he comes, I will request you, sir, the second he comes, to let me know. Let me, okay, what are the chats coming up? I've just been glancing at. Back? No, he's not back. Okay. So in the interim, let us take this particular question on. Let's go to, Group Captain Mehta, who's a scholar by him in all senses. What do you feel, sir? We'll use this time by answering these basic questions. Should the military stay on the sidelines because wars are fought by nations and the nation will call the military when they need it to be called? Is our present, this on the ICT domain a tenable situation? Over to you, sir, for your views. Captain Mehta, please, sir.
There has been a disturbance, Pavithran, and I could not get your question.
Oh, okay.
Can you
So I was
repeat again?
just
Because
saying,
somebody is.
yeah.
I
So
think somebody has a mic on and there's some background noise. I'm sorry. I'll have to mute.
Just check, Rishi. Can you mute
I think
the person?
Colonel Suresh Nair has his mic on. I'll have to mute him. Sorry, sir.
Suresh Nair.
I'm sorry, Colonel. I have to mute you, sir.
Please mute your mics if you're not speaking. When you want to speak, please unmute. Remember to unmute. So if you can hear me,
Go ahead.
Let me repeat my question because we're waiting for the speaker to come back. So I thought, because this is something which I thought was fundamental. There is no doubt that wars are fought by nations, even in the industrial era. It is not fought by the military. Okay, in the ICT domain, there are many other people who might like to say that, oh, it'll be fought by us. But when wars are going to be fought in the information domain, can the military be kept to the side? Today, we have a position where our critical information infrastructure, both in power and ICT backbones, is controlled today by a nation whose armies are mobilized, and the balloon might go up. Is this a very comfortable position? Do we need a rethink, or should MeitY and be allowed to continue with what they have been doing, and DOT continue to do with what they have been doing? Sir?
Yeah. Nice question, Pavithran. See, there is no doubt of the fact.
Okay. So let me jump in. Is he come back, sir? I can see your presentation.
Yes, he's come back.
So let other people also. So at the end of it, we will take this as the first question, sir. So let us get Mr. Kundana to come back. We missed you. Please, over to you, sir. I've done your introduction. It's a privilege to be on the same panel as you. Over to you, sir, Mr. Kundana.
Please unmute yourself. I can't hear you.
Mr. Kundana, you can use your mobile phone to make your voice reach us. if it is you have a bandwidth problem, it solves the problem. Because both together creates problem. You know, with big connectivity, both don't run together. He himself is a high-tech man. He will know better how to resolve it. Mr. Kundana, can you hear us?
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can all hear you now, finally. Over to you, sir. If you could have heard us. You got
Sorry, extremely sorry.
No, that happens. It happens in AI world, algorithm driven. So maybe someone has done a GreyZone warfare on you.
On eastern part of India. So I've got another presentation tomorrow. So I travel today, and I'm walking into a low network zone. So there may be some, but let me share my screen quickly, and hope everything falls in line. So are you able to see my screen also?
Yes,
Yes,
we are.
good to go.
Okay. So
Yeah,
so let
this
me
is good.
without any ado start. I mean, I'm privileged actually to be sitting with you all and such a esteemed uh, um, uh, uh, personalities around me. So let me start from this perspective. See, the narrative which we carry from the perspective from the AI, with AI, the advent of AI, there is always a risk of state. So there is a whole possibility the way this technology is maturing that we may not exist. As a country, we may not exist in coming decade. And I'll delve deeper into why I'm saying that. But before I walk into it, let me show you the we are the Homo sapiens. We are down below. We are the dominant species on Earth. We have taken over the Earth, and we are actually destroying it at this point of time. But there is a coming up very fast in the background, and that gentleman is known as artificial superintelligence. And if we go to the next screen of mine, let me put it into play mode. You will see some very sane people, people like Stephen Hawking, people like are very, very alarming. The development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of human race. That was what Stephen Hawking. He's no more, but that sounds very true. Elon Musk, he came out and said, we are summoning the demon. हम राक्षस बुला रहे हैं. और जब राक्षस आता है तो क्या करता है? हमें खा जाता है. Right? The Nick Bostrom, he came out, and it's a wonderful book. Actually, you need to read that if you get time. It's available on Amazon. It's known as Superintelligence. We are Disneyland without children. So a lot of collaterals, a lot of technology will be all around us, but we, the children, will be not there. James Barrett, he said, we have pulled the black ball out. It's our final invention, artificial intelligence and the end of the human era. But what I believe more is the last line, the physical extinction of human race is one possibility. I believe in human resilience, and I believe that the way we are so thoughtful, we'll be able to put the ethical boundaries, the policies, the regulatory environment in such a way that we will overcome this challenge which is there. But what they are trying to tell us is, and recently Bill Gates also came out and said, why can't we understand it? बात हमें समझ में क्यों नहीं आ रही है? And the whole thing is that when ASI or superintelligence or the matured AI is there, probably we will go extinct. And that is what this all gentlemen are talking about. But let me delve a little deeper into that. that AI is all around us, gentlemen. It is there. It is all the place. I'll give you one example. I mean, you know this example. Trump became the president of America. Why only 110,000 votes? And his attitude to Facebook, a day before message went out, because Facebook tracks you. You know exactly what's your leaning is, what's your political sidelines are, how do you think, what do you post, what do you like. Google, Facebook, everybody is tracking us. And they send out a message to all the right wingers that your friends are going to vote. Are you? And that was the Facebook AI. And it pulled all 12 of your friends' thumbnails down into that message. It says that 375,000 additional people who are right wingers went out and voted. And that's the reason Trump became the president of America by only 110,000 votes in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. That's the lead he got. Let me give you one example. The way we shop. Every one of us must have shopped on Amazon now, right? So what do? You go, you buy thing, you like it, you buy it, you pay for it, and next day a delivery guy comes and delivers it to you, or next day or next week, it comes and delivers it to you, right? If you have watched, if you've ordered 5 things, you will find 5 delivery guys comes in and delivers it to you. That's add to the logistic burden of Amazon. Amazon being a $114 billion firm, around $57 billion is their fulfillment or logistic cost. Okay, that is what the burden is. So what they're doing, this model which I'm talking about is known as shop and ship. You shop, they ship, right? Now they are leveraging, and Amazon, by the way, is very big in AWS cloud because they are cloud providers as well. They are very big in cognitive services. You know Alexa, right? You are interact with it. So they are leveraging cognitive services on cloud, and they are trying to change the model from shop and ship to ship and shop. So what will happen? One fine day you will open your door, you'll find an Amazon box in front of it, you'll open up, and you will find all those things you required that day. The milk is there, the mobile phone, whatever you require that day will be there. And that's the predictive capability they're leveraging AI. What they're doing is they're tracking you, they know what kind of product you're searching, what you buy, what kind of quality of products you buy, what's your buying capacity is, all that is being tracked. And then AI is being leveraged to predict what is that you're going to buy next day. They're already experimenting. So they're changing the model from shop and ship to ship and shop. So there are a lot of other examples all around us on that, but I dealt 2 of them. Similarly, the way we do business, it is being from the stock holding, company will become the next billion-dollar firm, okay, the unicorns. So that is also being predicted today. The human parity, if you look at, by 2076, resonant vision test on object recognition, AI was already 96% closer to us. Okay, on speech recognition in 2017, which is better than us, we make 5.5% error. The humans in 4493
Okay, Mr.
on his
Kundana, please
reading,
hold
right?
on,
On missing reading and comprehension, so close to us. On machine translation, it was around 30%. Okay, and probably now it is better than us in all those because we are living in 2021. So probably on human parity, it has already gone beyond it.
Yeah, Mr. Kundana, can you hear me?
Much more closer to us. And the reference which I am giving it to, hello? Yeah, I'm able to hear you. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Mr. Kundana, okay, just allow me to, because we are losing a whole lot of what you're saying. Yeah, I can hear you. Hold on. I'm just saying we are losing a whole lot of your voice. So sometimes I've seen that if everyone switches off the video, the connection might become better. May I request all other speakers, all other participants to switch off the video? Maybe we'll be able to hear him better. Yeah, mute the video, please. Mute the video. Thank you. Oh, back to you, Mr. Kundana.
Okay, thank you. Are you able to hear me now? Am I clear?
Yeah, much better right now. Let's hope it continues.
Okay, wonderful. So, so after referring this, sorry, let me come back to that. So the first thing,
switch off every video also.
okay, let me explain why I'm. Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. Right. Thank you. So the first step in AI, it will create an economic dystopia. And I call it the great decoupling. You know, by 2000, the human productivity reached a plateau, and actually it was going down. The SOPs we have written, Six Sigma, CMM level 5. I come from IT background, so obviously I'll refer more. ISO 27001. All those standard and processes we wrote, we brought the human productivity to a level. But capital intensive productivity or machine based productivity, platform based productivity, like your robotic process automation or DevOps, it has or robots based, this has been going up. If I can refer the Volkswagen factory in Munich, once upon today they operate with only 5,000 people. The whole conveyor belt has been automated. So this is an autonomy they have achieved using automation, and AI based only exacerbate this whole thing. It will accelerate it too. Okay. Productivity, capital intensive productivity is going up, but the human productivity is going down, and that has resulted into the family income down. Okay, now if you go down, if you look at this, when I say income, you know that 90% of the money in the world is in hands of 10% of people, and the 10% of the money is with us, the 90% of us, right? And with AI walking in, or AI-based automation walking in, it will become more acute. So, and three things will happen. The first is the share in production. As AI-based automation is much more better, what will happen? More and more robotic automation will be brought in, okay, and their production, skilled workers will get replaced because they work 24/7. The robotic implementations work 24/7. They produce better quality. So if you look at from all together, they have produced now automation, they are producing it in only 3.6 days. Okay, and a better quality machines. So share in production of robotic or automation, AI-based automation will increase. This will also take us to the next stage where they will come and ask you that your factory or your manufacturing base, how much automation you have. If you say, hey, you are deploying humans, okay, more of it. Then they say, well, hey, guys, we will not fund you, not pump money into you, will not give you the FDI. We will be not able to attract the FDI to us. So the investment flow will stifle. That is the second stage which will be there. They will ask you to bring in more automation, okay? So that will be the second stage. And third stage will be the terms of trade will change. To make you understand the terms of trade, you know, you remember that the Amazon and Google and all other companies, European and US companies, they stopped buying from companies who were deploying child labor, right? Next time, it will be human labor. They will say, hey, you deploy human labor, fine. We are not going to buy from you. And AI-based revenue, if you look at it, is going to rise by 2023. It is going to be a $35 trillion market, which is there, right? And in AI, in US, they are investing more than $3 trillion into AI. China is putting in $147 billion into AI and $2.5 trillion in emerging and foundational technologies. So what we are looking at, a very high substitutability, which advanced countries will achieve. More, they will substitute the human labor with more automation and bring the manufacturing base back to themselves. Okay, and that will basically stifle us. Our sustainability will get impacted. Okay, because we actually take pride at this point of time in labor arbitrage. 42.5% people are young people, which we take pride in, our labor force. Probably that will become not a boon, but a bane for us, okay, in coming decades. So that was another aspect which I just wanted to point. Now, the second part, which we need to understand and appreciate, that we are living in an age which we call it a narrow intelligence field. It is only 2.5 on a deep learning platform. It is only 2.5 million neurons which is being simulated at this time. So, and this might be such a bull funding or pumping in $1 billion into an institution like OpenAI, which is a foundation in US, to create artificial general intelligence technologies. And we need to understand and appreciate what ANI, narrow intelligence and general intelligence is all about. And narrow intelligence actually at this point of time works on a structured data set. It cannot remember the other task. So if you teach an autonomous car to drive a vehicle and then you teach him to fly a plane, it will forget about driving a car. But we humans don't do that. If we have learned cycling or swimming early childhood, even after 50 years, a cycle is given to us, we know how to drive it, right? And we work on unstructured data set. We work on the tacital, the touch, the olfactory organ, our smell, our hearing capability, our vision, our taste bud. This is our reality, right? These 5 Gyanendriya, or these are our the reality we create around it. AI will be doing the same thing. So it will operate upon unstructured data set. It will understand from, and it will remember the things which it has learned. That will make it sentient in coming decade. That will create the general intelligence technology set. So, and so you can well understand. And then we are not sure that from AGI to ASI, it will be a seconds, minutes, or days, or weeks before it will go to it. But let me also point it out that AGI technology, when it becomes available, okay, this will operate at 5,000 IQ level. We humans operate at 90 to 140 IQ level only. And I'll delve deeper into that later on. But what I'm trying to tell you is that it is already playing a lot of roles around us. A translator, a machine operator, a soldier, a writer. It is already playing a driver, autonomous vehicles. And the complexity of the intelligence, AI intelligence is increasing. We humans become intelligence with a spatial, interpersonal, mathematical, musical, all these intelligence we do have. AI is gaining and becoming superior to us in each one of it. So that is the complexity. It is moving towards the AGI in a that's the roadmap. The second which I want to point it out is that AI has also walked into the innovation cycle. And as it walks into innovation cycle, there will be no chance for us. There will be no catching up left out to human beings. And intuitive AI, which was actually leveraged to create a dream catcher, this project to car, and currently Jinga 21C hypercar is being not only designed by AI, but it is also being produced by augmented units, which is controlled by AI and 3D printing. The whole components are 3D printing. It's a new stream altogether, which is known as computational engineering. It is augmenting us. But the resultant will be that we humans can work with 3D printing, etc. But AI enabled or AI based innovation will be working hundreds of it in a single time. It is walking into innovation cycle. It will generate its own AI as well. You must have read about Google. Google AI is creating its own AI, which is much more better, right? Or Xenobots, which is recently has been invented. It will create its own AI, which will reproduce itself. So they will work on hundreds of technology at a given point of time. So any country, any corporate, which will have an access to this kind of a technology, you can well imagine the impact he can create. It will be a runaway innovation which they will be creating. And that is what the goal is. Let me also make it a point to you that the first Industrial Revolution 1.0, it happened on steam. We were not party to it as the Indians. It happened in Aero. They invented railway engines, steam ships, machine guns, and the resultant was that we were slaves for 200 years. Hum gulam the 200 saal tak. Then the Industrial Revolution 2.0, it happened due to electricity. It created the Great Divide. The developed nations and underdeveloped countries, we are still underdeveloped country. We call ourselves a developing nation, but we are still underdeveloped country. And it's all on consumption pattern of electricity. It's a general purpose technology. 3.0, Industrial Revolution 3.0, it happened due to computing. That is where we caught up the world, right? $287 billion worth of exports we are doing, 55% of the IT servicing we are doing. We are being called smarties now. They have woken, the world has woken to the fact that Indians are also smart guys. Industrial Revolution 4.0 is happening on intelligence. And gentlemen, if we are not party to this revolution, we are doomed. And let me try to make it more, probably you'll appreciate more better if you go down below on the Gartner hype cycle. There is one technology with all other AI technology brings to the table. And let me try to make you understand that what is quantum computing and how it relates to us. Okay, the human brain does around 26 quadrillion computations per second. It does at a speed of 120 meters per second. Okay, Hunan 1, the Chinese supercomputer, it does around 32 quadrillion computations per second, and it does at a speed of light. So you can think that AI, human brain, can be still modeled on a supercomputer. No, gentlemen, because that is where the comparison ends. Our cranial, I mean, the space we require is only our cranial. For doing 26 quadrillion computations is good enough. But a Hunan 1 requires 724 square meter space. That is around 7 two-bedroom apartments. Okay, we consume only 20 watts to do 26 quadrillion computations per second. Hunan 1 requires 24 megawatts to do 32 quadrillion computations per second. Now, so technology is still not there. The computational capabilities are still not there. But there is a guy which is coming in, and that's the quantum AI, the quantum computing. The quantum annealers today, like you must have read about Google claiming quantum supremacy, right? The qubits computing is already available. You can access it, right? And the capability is so humongous. The laptop which I'm presenting this particular presentation, if somebody gives me tomorrow at a room temperature a quantum laptop, it will be the differential between my laptop and that laptop will be 100 million times. 10 करोड़ गुना, यानी 10 करोड़ लैपटॉप्स को अगर आप जोड़िएगा तो मेरा वो क्वांटम लैपटॉप बनेगा.
Okay,
that is the kind of capability we have.
2 more minutes.
Right.
2 more minutes. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So the quantum AI which is walking in, and we are not party to it, gentlemen. As a dominant species, if you look from the left-hand side on the intelligence staircase, we operate between 90 to 140 IQ level. And the chicken, which operates between 10 to 15 IQ level, what we do with them? We eat them day in and day out, right? Now, if you go on the left side, the biological range of the intelligence on this earth, where we are the dominant species operating between 90 to 140 IQ level, AGI will operate at 5,000 IQ level. ASI will operate at probably 12,500 IQ level. That's the prediction. That's the projection. You can well understand any innovations, any strategic thinking, any theorems will be not even able to appreciate it. That's the fear. The fear is either we'll go extinct or we'll become immortal. Probably I believe more that we'll be walking towards immortality. Now AI, as it is predicted that by 2050, we'll be not able to recognize a humanoid or a human being whom we are interacting to. By 2030, we'll not even get license to drive. It will lower the threshold of war. So if China can spend a few $1 billion and take away our natural president, they will do it happily because it will be an autonomous weapons war. They will be sending exoskeletons, autonomous weapons, drones, autonomous tanks, whatever and whatnot. Okay, a wingman, all those things they'll be sending into Winover. It will be though no human loss for them. It will be only for us. So technological singularity, it is inevitable. The threshold of war is going down. A misaligned AI is a real threat, gentlemen. And the laws or the lethal autonomous weapons and all, they are part of the misaligned AI, a bad AI. Okay, we have to think about good AI and probably we can take it. This is the only technology which can move us from Homo sapiens, war, famine, and disease. That is what we suffer from today, to becoming a Homo Deus, looking towards immortality, happiness, stability. That's the good AI. Can progress into that direction. This is the strategic advantage. All this money being pumped into AI to achieve this is the strategic advantage. You know, the first offset was the nuclear bombs. They put it, this fat brother or big brother and fat boy, whatever, they put it on Japan. It's kneeled down and they killed 1 million people in 5 seconds.
Request slowly, wind up, sir. Yeah.
Right, I'll do that. This is the last slide of mine. I'll just close it after that, right? So this is a decisive strategy. We took 32 years to develop our own nuclear bomb, Pavithran, right? They developed the ICBM, IRBM, satellite, Star Wars. and they put up a ban on cryogenic engine. It took us 25 years for us to put our first rocket. Now they are developing Thanos, the singleton. This is the artificial super intelligence they are putting their money in. That is the decisive strategy they are. We are in the middle of a war. And that is the war which you call it a gray zone warfare or non-contact warfare. We are living it at this point of time. We need to wake up to this fact. And there is no catching up, gentlemen. We have to start thinking and start. We are looking at a hyper-competitive digital enterprise, be it the government, be it military, be it industry, or be it academia. It is a foresightedness, which is a declarative world which has walked in. Everything will be predicted. It will be not cause and then an action against it. And that has to become an opportunity. If you don't have any AI strategy, you're going to die in the world that is coming. Putin, they came out and said very clearly that artificial intelligence is an opportunity and they can become the ruler of the world. Whoever becomes the superior or takes the lead will become the ruler. They are very clear. They want to rule the world. The US is pumping in more than $3 trillion. China is putting more than $147 billion. There is an emerging new world order, partnership in AI. You go on the website and you will find that too. Right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
But
thank you, sir.
For India, we are on the cusp of the biggest opportunity that we need to realize. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks a lot.
Wow. Thank you, sir. That was an amazing presentation, and I wish we had more time and the bandwidth was better, that we could hear you better. But you have covered some, a whole lot of ground. We have heard you loud and clear. That we have to change tack. How do we do that? Maybe you will point us also on, how do we do that? AI singularity. Will it happen today, tomorrow, next decade, or 5 decades down the line? It surely has to happen at one time. We have no doubt on that. But our challenges today, we are a nation. The world remains divided in Westphalian nation concepts. Whatever you have said is all happening in other nations. What are we as a nation trying to defend ourselves? We have got more immediate problems. The largest youth bulge in human history. And there you are about automation. Where is going to be the jobs? What are we doing about it? Okay, and historically you have said the human evolution is a millions of years process. Before the Homo sapiens popped up, but we share a lot of evolutional thinking traits with multiple other species. We are a continuation of the species evolution on Earth. And in the last 10,000 years of recorded history, nothing much has changed in the human brain. That being so, why are we just bystanders watching an impending train coming at full speed towards us? We are right on the track. Thank you, sir. Let's hope that we, I now, open it up to the question and answer session. And hopefully these are things which the audience will throw up to the panelists so that we have some coherent answers to few challenges. Okay, my first question to all the panelists.
Pavithran, Rajan,
yes.
If I may intervene, a small request. We also would like to listen to General Mallick. Initially, you said, if time permitting, he would like to give the contra view. If you can give him a little opportunity to say that. We all would like to listen to that.
Okay, sir. Over to
General request.
Okay, sure, sir. Over to General Mallick before you go to the question and answer, session. So,
thank you very much. I'll take just 3 minutes. I am. Can somebody put up the last slide of caveats? I've been observing this information warfare domain for a long time. I've got a basic issue. If you want to influence the mind of people across the border, which terminology should we use? Is it information operations? Is it psychological operations? Is it strategic communication? Is it influence operations? Is it the perception management, public information operations, public field diplomacy, or what? There are a number of things. I am not putting this question. There is a gentleman called Dr. Herbert Lee. He has asked this question. The US who are propagating these terminologies are themselves confused. To my mind, there should be 2 terminologies only. When you are carrying out operations across the board, this is psychological operations. When we are doing in CICT ops within your own country, it should be perception management. Point one. Point two, from early 90s, we have been carrying out this counter-insurgency, counter-terrorism operation. That was the terminology which was being used. Early 90s, they said this is low-intensity conflict operations, LICO. Then they said this is asymmetric warfare. Then there a hell lot of things came out like SASO, strategic and operations, irregular operations, unconventional warfare, small warfare, long warfare. But the last three got this thing. This is called fourth generation warfare, hybrid warfare, and now terminology GreyZone warfare. Now, what I want to say is in 2009, there was an international seminar organized by Clause on Terrorism. Colonel Thomas Hammes, you can give this slide, he's from US military Marine Corps, who came for that discussion. He had written a book called I'm just say the Sling and the Stone, and he was the man, along with William Lind, who gave the theory of fourth generation warfare. William Lind gave us the theory of maneuver warfare. Now ask him the question, sir, what has changed? Character also changes. The method of doing things changes, technology changes, but basic things remain the same. Why are you using this 4GW terminology? These guys are quite blunt. They said, I was a brigadier at that time. He said, brigadier, you are exactly correct. But at that particular point of time, when US was going gaga over the technology of the first Gulf War, he says the second Gulf War was staring at us, the counterinsurgency operations. But we had to coin a terminology which is very sexy. That is why we get 4GW. Now came hybrid warfare, then the new terminology GreyZone warfare. They all, both of them say Russians are masters in this. Now Russians are using next generation warfare. Non-contact warfare was used by a Major Seclecy. And we are going out getting terminologies and terminologies. Why I'm saying this? Simple. There are not many success stories in counter-insurgency operations. We, Indian Army, has got fantastic success stories. Punjab, Mizoram, and the Nagaland and all, they're kept under control. Which country has got? USA. What is the success story? Grenada? LOL. But why we are imbibing only these terminologies? We, in Indian Army, RTRAC, Army Training Command, had used this terminology called sub-conventional warfare, and they made a doctrine on it. Unfortunately, if today you go to RTRAC website, you don't get sub-conventional. What I want to say is, I can go on and on. Network-centric warfare. Today, this US guy says it cannot function. It is now mosaic warfare. Decision-centric warfare. It takes 3 years to get these terminologies here. I am sure you are reading these multi-domain operations. They have shifted. They are saying it's all domain operations. So they will keep doing, but we have to put our foot on ground. Our jointmanship is in very bad shape. Please tell me, what is the close air support process? It is archaic, Second World War. Do something about this and not go into this fancy terminology, all domain operations. And last point is, we are Indians, we are good at many things. Let people come and learn from us, but use your own technologies, use your own terminologies. That's it. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. That was right from the heart. But I take the message again away. Should we set the narrative, or should we allow other people to set the narrative for us? Should we build our own? Should we allow other people? Should we import and just deploy? So anyway, back to the audience for the question and answer session. I have got 34 minutes. So let me go back to the question which I myself had asked in between when we couldn't find Mr. Kundana, and back to Group Captain Mehta, because I'm sure he might be able to give you some oversight onto it. For people who have not heard the question, let me repeat this. Non-democratic states are fundamentally weaker. Are wars fought by nations or by the military? More or less, we all agree that wars are fought by nations and use the military. But then, having said that, can the military be kept to the side, or should be in the lead to coordinate the preparation for that inevitable war? is the cyber domain, basically cyber crime, or should we prepare for cyber war? The Indian nation is very clearly prepared for cyber crime because they wanted to enable the ITES industry. Okay, and the police are in the lead. So should we allow the police to continue in the lead, or should the military, who will be held responsible constitutionally, be in the lead? You, sir, Group Captain Mehta.
Thank you very much, Pavithran, for this question. Very, very pertinent and relevant question. Well, the first part of the question was who fights the war? There is no doubt about the answer. The war is always fought by the nation. But question is, how is it fought? And there the military comes. A war, conventional war, it was supposed or believed cannot be fought without military. But gradually, now that we have entered that era of non-conventional war, and now we are into gray zone, though the general does not like this terminology, it appears that your question also suggests that the role of the military is gradually diminishing. Now, this is a fallacy. The nation fights the war, bringing together its entire national resources and power. Military is a component of national power. Can a nation who is confronting a conventional, non-conventional, gray or pink war ignore such a huge, big resource at its command? No, sir, it cannot. Now, why military is important? I will like to just give me 1 minute. See, there are every resource has got its own USP, and military has got its own USP. What is that? In my mind, military is a centralized command structure, a organization where from intention and conception to execution can be done in one straight go. There's very few organizations at the command of Government of India who can claim to do so. And this has been repeatedly proven because you see, defense is the military is the last resort. When everything fails, military is inducted and they do it beautifully. They do it effortlessly because they have the resources, they have the organization. Secondly, there is another tendency that is prevalent today is that in today's technological world, the defense services personals do not have that kind of exposure. I'm sorry, I disagree with that. Because you see, the whole cutting edge technology or the concept was initiated by the military. And just now the previous speakers also had talked. The management concept came out of the military. The first cutting edge technologies were driven by the military. And therefore, my final recommendation will be that now that the country is recognizing that they are confronted with a non-contact war, they are in a situation, as Mr. Kundana Lal said, that we are in the thick of it. The train is rushing towards us. So what I think the military has to be used in the cyber war because military has got the best brains. And now the military is going to be the technology-driven military where more and more best talents can come here, put under their central command structure, and the new technology, if passed to the military, they will be able to develop it, deliver it beautifully. So I am all for the defense.
Can I answer this question? Can I answer this question?
Sure, sir. Sure. So
you have to understand there are two distinct parts. One is cyber defense and another is cyber offensive operations. If you see how the other countries are organized, in the USA, the cyber defense responsibility of Department of Homeland Security, like our MHA. The NSA has got the maximum capabilities in terms of everything. it carries out the offensive part and as well as the cyber command which has come up. And this is dual-headed as of now. The chief of NSA and the cyber command is the same. There is the armed forces officer. Now, what happens in New England? GCHQ reports to foreign minister. It does not come under anybody except foreign minister because it goes in the other people's domain. In Israel, there was a lot of confusion. The intelligence agencies, Mossad and all, wanted to keep this to themselves. Ultimately, the prime minister said it will come under me. All the operations they carry out has to get the stamp of PMO, only PM. In our case, there is a lot of confusion. We have got a national cyber security coordinator, but he has got no authority. You can give him responsible authority. He can only pass instruction to different agencies, like somebody has mentioned that in the power sector, it is infested with Chinese. But who will do that? It is the power sectors who has to do it. And who will pass instructions? The National Cyber Security Coordinator has got no authority to tell if the ministries are strong, they will say to woods. So there is a dichotomy here and we have to sort out. And I'm sorry, at the present state that we are in, if the armed forces can look after their own networks, cyber networks or the community networks, it will be very nice. They have got no capability as of now or the intention to get into national domain. It is too far off. It is too complicated, too big for armed forces to do it. Yes, what can happen is like a disaster management and all, some really disaster has taken place. So the government can say, okay, can you do something about it, or some disaster management type of a thing can be done. But to take over the responsibility of cyber domain, cyber defense is beyond this. Cyber operations, it is a classified domain. I will leave it at that. There are people who have been designated like NTR and all. They do whatever God only knows, and those who knows will not talk. But this is what the status is. But as of now, there is no central agency who can be hanged by his balls. If something disaster has taken place, so you are responsible. And there lies the dilemma. There has to be a single agency who should be made responsible and his ball should be on fire. That is not there today as of now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Sir,
sir.
please mention the
Can I take
timings.
2 minutes? Pavithran, sir, can I take 2 minutes?
Please, sir, please take 2 minutes.
Yeah, I wanted to answer your question regarding the. I slightly differ from the first two speakers on this issue. Your question about the involvement of the armed forces in this kind of a warfare which is developing. Firstly, the concept of total warfare is not new. It started as early as the First World War, when the entire civilian population was part of the warfare thing. And today we are seeing that when we talk of warfare or defense or offense, it does not only talk of geographical borders or sea. It includes economic and all these issues which we know. Now, I am also reminded of a issue which was talked about by 4 or 5 years back by the US Defense Secretary that time. He says, or rather he said, that we all know that the characteristic of war is changing. That is a given. We all know we first Gulf War, second. But he says, I'm not sure, which is a debatable thing, what Clausewitz said. I am not sure whether the nature of warfare is itself changing. Now, it's a big question to understand, because nature of warfare is always gruesome. There is always, conflict. There is always friction. But there is a debate on that, whether can you fight a war or have a confrontation without causing casualties as well as achieve. That is the challenge and discussion which is going on in the international media. Now, the technologies which are emerging now, for example, deep learning, AI, machine learning, etc., quantum computing and all, I am into these topics and I understand the mathematics behind it. Let me assure you, sirs, here that Indian Armed Forces is far away from this. By Indian Armed Forces, even the US Army clearly acknowledges that they do not have the capability within the armed forces to handle these emerging. I mentioned about NSA and NRO and all that.
For example, just about 4 months back, as far as satellite imagery is concerned, just like earlier presidential order was given, it was given in the US that the satellite imagery procurement will not be handled by NRO or the NSA. It will henceforth, they will buy that from the civilian agencies, because the inherent capabilities do not exist. So what I am trying to say here is, just to say that army or the defense forces have the technical capability would be a misnomer, especially in technologies like AI and all that. For example, today if you want to make an AI model, you require data. Without data, there is no AI. I know this because I do AI. I've done AI for the armed forces. There is no data set existing in the armed forces for making any AI model. With that, I will
Okay,
pull back.
thank you. That was a very passionate intervention, but we are running out of time. I've just got 12 more minutes to conclude.
My apologies.
Let me no, that's not your intervention was very valuable, but let me there are not too much of questions which I can put to the panelists, but let me just focus the panelists and ask them for a reply. See, the way I see it, our national critical infrastructure, the power and ICT, which is known as the ground of tactical importance, okay, in the information age, is controlled by China, largely. Okay, the Indian military, there is nothing much, a trained operator, using the graphical user interface, or a third party, which will work on the 7th layer, can do anything about these two particular sectors when the appliances are basically Chinese. Okay, and you have the Indian Army, where you have gone on a let me how do I put it delicately? You have bought into narratives where you have said it is air gapped, when we know since 2013 there is no air gap. Snowden at least has brought it to us, but we have handed it over to the Americans. They totally control it. Will Americans want India to have a war with China, or would they want to have peace? If they control that network, will they paint us a scenario which will be to our detriment and to their advantage? Now, a lot of people sitting out here are the people who have been in the system and are responsible for the current state of affairs. Okay, there we are. Am I totally wrong? Am I totally incorrect? Let me ask Mr. Kundan first, because he at least can say, I am not responsible. I was not in government. You are the guys who have done it. Oh, okay, over to Mr. Kundan for that particular question which I put through. What is your opinion, sir? You'll have to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Please unmute. Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, wonderful. So I was still seized with the first question you asked that time. Let me this technology, the way it has progressed, it is now beyond any military. Okay. The threshold.
Okay. Hold on, Mr. Kundan. Although your answer is quite good, the only reason I'm interrupting is we cannot hear you. Your connection is not up to the mark, and we'll be taking other people's time. Hold on, Mr. Kundan. Unfortunately, the connection. I would
leverage it down.
No. I would request
others are requested to switch off their, stop the video and mute it. Then he will be able to hear.
Okay, fine. Let us give him another option with the.
Right. Are you able to hear me now? I believe I'm loud and clear. Hello.
Better.
Okay. So I will stop my video too. Okay. So the point I was making, I was still seized with the first question when you asked. Okay. Let me tell you, the threshold of hacking has gone down drastically. Even a kid can hack us. Okay. And if you look from the project Voltron, which US military did, they find out, and leveraging AI, they actually did a project Voltron, and they found out the loopholes there in operational technology is worth about $1.6 trillion, which they are trying to overcome, leveraging again AI, right? So this problem statement is beyond any military. As a nation, we have to step in. Academia, industry, IT industry, everybody has to, the military, they have to join hands. They have to see And obviously, we have to look at in a world which is a panopticon. Second, the biggest problem which is there today is that we don't have a control over data set. I heard a gentleman talking about data. It is absolutely right. AI needs data. AI needs ubiquitous network. AI needs computational capability. We have not developed it. We are not there. We don't have an access to neuromorphic computing chips. We don't have an access to VLSI chips, which is lower than 5 angstrom unit. Taiwan has it. India doesn't have it. Okay? China doesn't have it. They are developing it. They have reached 12 angstrom unit VLSI chips. They'll reach very fast. We have if you look from the perspective of quantum, we don't have. There are only 4 IITs at this point of time seized with it. We have to go big way into that. We have to realize to those facts. And the second most important is that countries like China, they are crossing the boundaries. They are not attacking directly from China. It will be bouncing across to Italy, to UK, and then coming to us. What they're doing, they are mapping us. They are developing signatures for us. Okay, so that when the balloon is up, they can attack us, penetrate,
we are running out of time.
and take over our
I need to get 2 other speakers in. You have covered it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You have covered it beautifully. Okay, but I still come back to without your local industry, nothing much can be done. That message is very clear. The military, the only thing which I talk about the military is, will they take the lead in ensuring that a local industry will be created? Okay, but now let me get in Mr. Atraya, because after that is Colonel Das, because I'm sure he will try, he will defend it. Let me give Mr. Atraya a speaker, a chance to ask his question.
2 questions really. One is, Colonel, sir, you yourself talked about the relevance of cyber security and the large work.
Hold on, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, please.
Political science. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your voice is down. Yeah.
Is there a need for more synergy between political science, public administration, and international relations disciplines with ICT disciplines at academic level? Are think tanks in India and global level meeting this challenge? Secondly, so that's one question. The next question is, India has a joint doctrine for perception management and PsyCops 2010 released by HQ IDS. Does this need to be updated to include larger cyber and grey zone warfare? Thank you, sir.
Okay, you asked another question instead of giving a reply, but that's fine. We will take on that question. But over to Mr. Das, Colonel Das for his particular comments. Hold on, Atraya, we'll come back to this. We'll ask, throw it up to the panelists.
So, it is, it's frustrating to see the whole approach to this problem as a zero-sum game. Military in, not in kind of thing. When you talk of whole of nation, everybody's involved. And in our particular case, we should recognize the culture of our country, right? So you can't pick up models from elsewhere, other than for information. And the challenge right now is you have multiplicity of agencies, right? So if you look at principles of war, concentration of force. Unfortunately, in a democracy, we have fault lines in governance. You have multiple ministries, you have bodies which write strategy, have got nothing to do with execution. They just throw it over the wall and people have to execute. Connecting those dots require leadership at the political level. There are countries like Russia, for example, which has got cyber at the ministerial level, right? So there is, and this, for me as an observer, this is the first time I'm facing a group like this in my whole life, where you are so far removed from reality, I say that again, because a think tank is a think tank, but there are people who need to do things. And in a forum where much of the work has to be done, and you need representatives who talk about that, that is when the synergy happens. Unfortunately, we have not reached that space. We are very, we are very far away. And it's particularly a pity for India because we got so much of potential. It needs to get manifest, and that manifestation happens through the governance, all the dots coming together. And that is where I think where we need to look at. It's not about military or no military, right? Everybody has a role here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We hear you loud and clear. See, in a democratic system, there are multiple ministries, there are business of rules, etc., in which a system is supposed to function and coherently. The coordinating ministry is the PMO. Okay, so you're clearly, I agree with you. If the leadership doesn't come from the PMO, nothing is going to happen. All ministries are going to push left, right, and center. But the question was, now that we have reached a stage where we are, okay, with what I'm saying is our national critical infrastructure is with China, our military, backbones are with the US. What is the next step? Which is very clear, is the indigenous building up the indigenous. What way? The short term, the small, mid-term, and the long term. We need to bring out. But yes, you are correct, sir. Definitely, the political leadership is responsible. But constitutionally, has the military leadership conveyed this in writing, saying that our defenses are untenable at this point? That is something which is what I was trying to highlight. Back to Atreya's question. Would any of the panelists, shall I ask General Mallick whether to take this?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
The previous speaker's question, this is regarding the joint doctrine of perception management and psychological operations 2010. You'll be surprised. All over the world, the concept that what I've told you, that psychological operations are carried out against your opponents or across the border. They are never carried out against your own people. Perception management is carried out within your country in CICT ops and other places. But you will be surprised if you read that document, it says exactly the opposite. And that is why you are very correct. It is high time we make this doctrine. And again, I'll come back to my very favorite subject. If you click on India's joint doctrine, you will not find in any website except mine and Nitin Gokhale's website. You have got websites. It's your joint doctrine. You want to study or speak or write on jointness. You first document you will like to focus on is India's joint doctrine. India's armed forces don't put it online, though it is an unclassified document. You will find in my website, or there are only two websites. I can vouch for that. So this is how we are. I'm exactly with my friend Colonel KPM Das. It is frustrating the way we operate. I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are just out of time. It's 1:29 as per my watch. That's 1 minute. And I know that's not been a very satisfactory and coherent where we can take away something, is my own feeling. Maybe in in such a discussion, instead of asking people to give their presentations, maybe we might like to revert to the previous model where we plan the questions, give to this, and we have a discussion. I just leave it to the industry to think it over, because in multiple sessions all over the world I have participated. In this particular model, you might not be able to take a lesson back, especially in such a nation like India. My duty to give it back to the organizers. I've had a wonderful experience and a lot to think over. We might have come across slightly disjointed, but then my one firm takeaway is we are on notice period. Okay. We are just 2 steps away from the FUP. Hopefully it should not happen. But if that happens, the military cannot say that my job was only to fight the war at the border, but the rest of the economy is shut down. So now I don't have anything to fight with. That is the position where we have reached today. And I don't think the military can shrug it off. Back to you, sir, the organizers.
Thank you
very much. Raj, just a minute.
Yeah. Please, sir, go ahead.
Before I hand over, before we break off for lunch, I just wanted to, first of all, I would like to thank Pavithran, for doing a commendable job, and the one thing is some of them, there are too many sort of divergence of views, different views, and somebody saying we don't agree. Honestly, I would have been very disappointed if there were no two different points of view, because the whole purpose of the think tank is to provoke thoughts and generate a sort of discussion wherein everybody doesn't have to agree. I would have failed if we all would have jointly, collectively agreed, okay, that's the way. Then it would have been a typical military style. But as a think tank, we have just sort of stirred the hornet's nest, as they would call it. And then there are a lot of divergent thoughts. And I agree with Colonel Pavithran that, we should be question answers model. Will revert back to that. But before that, unless we have views, it is just a process. The first is we are getting the views, and then we'll go ahead with that. And just give me, allow me to give my own perspective. I fully agree with the General Saab, General Mallick. He was on the spot. When we are only talking about jargons and too many theories. The people who have written 100 types of warfare, they have never won a war, either in Vietnam or in Afghanistan. They made a mess of themselves. They're very good think tanks. They can write, but on the ground, India has, our context is totally different. We have to evolve our own. With that, I hand over to Raj, and he can do the final thing. We'll break off for lunch. We'll meet again. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Kundan. Your presentation was excellent. Later on, we could talk. What is the timeline you give for the human extinction? I hope it won't be.
Thank you, sir.